Hello and welcome to Borderzine Presents 2025. I'm Catchy Margino.
And I'm Jessie Garcia. The next half hour is a showcase of work from students in the fall 2025 semester of Borderzine. To start off, Catching goes behind the scenes of One Battle After Another, filmed right here in El Paso.
Yeah, I visited some of the filming locations to get a closer look at how the city is brought to life in the film. Here's the story.
In the new film, One Battle After Another, a group of ex-revolutionaries must help rescue the daughter of one of their own when their evil enemy resurfaces after 16 years. The film, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, has been praised by both audiences and critics. One of its premier filming locations is El Paso. The film showcases locations like Sunset Heights, the Union Depot train station, El Paso Street downtown, and even the El Paso streetcar. Not only is the city on display in much of the film, but it also highlights the regional talent working both in front of and behind the camera. Locations manager and picture car coordinator Jacob Senna spoke about his experience on the production and the unique beauty El Paso brings as a filming location.
So my brother, master mechanic George Senna, taught me about classic cars, how to build them. Building hot rods, muscle cars. I grew up around cars. We grew up really poor, so we had to learn to fix our cars and stuff. That is what essentially led me into the motion picture industry. It was by the grace of God that every location that I showed Paul and the people that Paul met through the locations that I found and scouted for the production, he fell in love with El Paso. We have the best locations in the state of Texas and southern New Mexico. It's 4 different land formations, and that's very hard and unique to find as opposed to Austin. Austin, it's always green and it's humid. Here we have the desert climate, and we have some areas that look like Los Angeles, places that look like Pennsylvania. We have the mountain, so and then we have the border. So it is a hub for filming. Just look at downtown.
Among the El Paso locations used was Genesis Perfumeria, a perfume store where the main hero, Bob Ferguson, ends up about halfway through the film on his journey to find his daughter. Thankfully, Bob is aided by several skaters who were all El Paso born and raised. Professional skateboarder Gilberto Martinez Jr., who plays BG in the film,
Forward 3 out there!
speaks to his process in filming downtown and what made the experience so special.
The main thing that they hired us for was a skateboarding sequence where we're sketching onto a car. And I think for me that was like a very impactful moment, being that I'm from El Paso and I've skateboarded these streets my whole life. For me, El Paso has that like untapped beauty where there was a moment with Paul and they were lighting everything up, and I told Paul, I'm like, wow man, you're making the city look really beautiful. And he looked at me, he's like, no, he's like, it's already beautiful, we just need it for the camera, right? So there has been this beauty of El Paso for so many years that no one's seen. And now it's kind of finally making its way around where it's almost like a canvas, a plain canvas, and you could kind of paint what you want. You could do many things. And that goes with like starting a business, making a film, doing all these different kinds of things. El Paso is that place where I feel my creative spirit lives here and I could be creative here.
Creatives and film fans alike hope to see El Paso and the people that make it so unique in future projects like One Battle After Another. The film's success and the people that helped make it one is something to celebrate for anyone championing film in the 915. This is Catching Margino, reporting for Borderzine.
That was such an interesting look at how El Paso shows up on the big screen.
Yeah, it's cool to see places we recognize become part of a major film, already getting Oscar buzz.
Speaking of recognizable places, Israel Garcia is here to introduce us to a story about one we all see every day.
The Franklin Mountains are the rugged backdrop that defines El Paso's skyline. But beyond the view, these peaks tell a story of ancient geology, community protection, and a thriving ecosystem. Reporter Alyda Muela takes us on a journey to explore how this unique wilderness continues to shape life in the Borderland.
The Franklin Mountains rise over El Paso, forming one of the largest urban wilderness parks in the world. The range formed millions of years ago along the Rio Grande Rift. Geologists say the mountains are still rising today, but at an imperceptible rate of less than a millimeter a year. The landscape is always changing, shaped by erosion and the presence of humans.
From a geology perspective, The mountains would always be changing. As soon as they're uplifted, the erosional forces start to take place, and so when mountains are being uplifted at the same time they're being eroded, so there's always change.
Robert is president of Celebration of Our Mountains, a group dedicated to helping the community explore and appreciate the Franklin Mountains through recreational activities.
Twice a year we have a program of mostly on weekends, just trying to get people out any way we can to enjoy the mountains.
In the 1970s, community efforts appealed to lawmakers to protect the Franklin Mountains from overdevelopment. This led to state ownership in 1981 and the Franklin Mountain State Park designation in 1987. Park Ranger Lydia Pagel says there's an ongoing effort to balance encouraging people to enjoy the park and still protect the natural landscape. She points out that hiking trails were designed to channel water safely during rain. But some hikers cut new switchbacks, which create erosion channels where water runs onto the trail, making it rockier and more treacherous.
We design the trails in a particular way for a particular reason. And if you see a cut, don't follow that. If it's going straight up the side of the hill, that's not a good trail.
On the bright side, Pagel says that wildlife is thriving in the mountains, including almost 80 bighorn sheep that were reintroduced to the area last December from the Elephant Mountain Wildlife Management Area near Alpine.
They're native animals to this area, but they have not lived in this mountain range probably for over 100 years.
In the late 1800s, bighorn sheep populations sharply declined due to unregulated hunting and disease brought by domesticated sheep.
So that was really exciting. I am really curious to see how that population does over the next 10 to 20 years. I'm expecting and hoping that we see that population grow and thrive, but it is going to depend on those rains.
Last year, the state park welcomed about 74,000 visitors. This year so far, that number is already closer to 83,000. Park staff say their main priority right now is maintaining trails and making sure visitors can enjoy the mountains safely and responsibly. Reporting for Borderzine, I'm Alyda Muela.
Light and sculpture are coming together in a unique way here in the Borderland. Reporter Catching Marginal takes us inside the Rayenari Light Festival.
For UTEP sculpture professor Angel Cabrales, art is ever-changing and should be engaging.
We want people to know, like, art isn't just something on the wall to look at. Art should engage you and create discussion and move you. And we feel that this is what this artwork does.
That's why Cabrales, along with his wife Bianca, created Rayenari, a light-based art festival in 2024. The festival showcases works by sculptors that blend STEM principles of science, technology, engineering, and math with art known as STEAM.
I'm a big sci-fi nerd, science nerd, and I really love teaching my students how much engineering and math and science is involved in artwork. And I wanted to show the community in that way that STEM is good, STEAM is better.
Works by Cabrales' students and more than a dozen artists lit up the festival this year at the Sunland Park Sports Complex November 14th and 15th. Each piece used 3D space and light to engage visitors.
And when you look at, artists that are using technology, you see all sorts of different types of artwork, and that's what we wanted to display. So we decided to bring in projection mappers and light-based artists that are using neon and LEDs and so forth.
UTEP art student Teresa Castellanos created a piece for the show to make a statement on gun violence in schools.
For my piece, I have it's 3 little kids around the ages of 8 and 10. And the pieces are actually, I shot the pieces with an actual AR-15, which is the most commonly used weapon in shootings.
Cabrales started college as a geochemistry major, but was intrigued by the opportunities for creative expression through sculpture.
The reason I love sculpture so much is that it's ever evolving. It's always changing, and it embraces that change. So sculpture utilizes everything. You're going to draw, you're going to paint, you're going to use every single technique you go through, and sculpture will take it all and will accept it all.
For Cabrales, art is more than something to look at. It's something to experience. And through Rayenari, he's lighting a path for a new generation of artists to express themselves through science and imagination. This is Catching Margino, reporting for Borderzine.
Borderzine is a bilingual newsroom powered by student journalists at the University of Texas at El Paso. We report on culture, health, business, education, and border issues that are a part of everyday life on the U.S.-Mexico border. Here, emerging journalists learn their craft while telling the stories of El Paso, Juarez, and southern New Mexico that you often won't find anywhere else. Watch more and read our latest at borderzine.com.
When cell towers go down and the internet goes dark, one group in El Paso can still send a message through. Their technology may seem old school, but it remains one of the most reliable forms of communication in the emergency. Borderzine's Ray Xavier Monsiváis has the story.
In an increasingly digital world, one place in El Paso is dedicated to keeping people connected through radio technology.
What you're hearing now, these are computers talking. So,
The El Paso Amateur Radio Club is a space for licensed operators to communicate with people nearby, across the globe, and even in space, known as ham radio.
We don't do it to get employed. We do it because it's a hobby. It's what we like to do.
Ham radio is a lifelong passion that opens doors to new possibilities and fosters community connections.
So actually we're doing here, we do a test. There's 2 clubs in town, and so we alternate, and so we do testing. So anyone in the region they want to come out, we'll administer the test for them to get their federal license.
The El Paso Amateur Radio Club was founded in 1946. Over the years, it has grown, and in 1985, moved to its current clubhouse, high on the mountain with a view of El Paso and Juarez. The facility includes a meeting room, a workshop, and a 48-foot tower that enables communication across vast distances. Because ham radio uses radio frequencies, it doesn't rely on cell towers or the internet. This makes it a critical tool during emergencies.
Well, one of the things you'll always hear when you talk about ham radio, you'll hear the phrase, when all else fails. We look at North Carolina and Georgia and the East Coast where the hurricane was just that. There's no electricity. There's no cell phone coverage. And people are in remote areas.
Ham radio operates as a lifeline when modern communication fails. The club is not just a meeting space. It's a place where members share their knowledge and ensure that equipment is ready when needed. And even when operators can't be here, they can always stay connected from anywhere.
Now that one, it's almost the same thing as that one up there, but in a mobile installation.
The El Paso Amateur Radio Club welcomes newcomers ready to take up the ham radio tradition, a tool for learning, community, and connection.
So many ways you can use this kind of technology, and the club just in El Paso is just, they've been around for a long time, and we hopefully just serve that region and provide ability for people to enjoy it.
Did you know? The buildings at UTEP are inspired by the architecture of the Kingdom of Bhutan. The style was adopted after the wife of the first dean of the university saw a National Geographic article in 1914.
Food tells a story, especially here in El Paso. Jesse Garcia introduces us to 2 local chefs, whose passion for flavor and culture has earned them recognition beyond the borderland.
El Paso has a uniqueness to it captured through different mediums of art. For leading chefs Enrique Lozano and Mateo Herrera, food is where they capture the soul of the region.
I started cooking really because of my dad used to be a chef when I was growing up. My mom was an excellent home cook, and it just became like second nature to me.
Chef Enrique Lozano features Asian and Mexican cuisine in his culinary style and displays it in his Eastside restaurant, Benny Frank's. The marrying of cuisines had him stand out for a nomination for the James Beard Best Chef Texas 2022 award.
A lot of my recipes are like recipes that I learned from my parents. Those recipes, I take them and I add like an Asian twist to them because much like our ancestors, Asia is very rich in culture and tradition. It pairs very well and a lot of the ingredients make sense.
The culture and unique landscape of the Borderland also inspires El Paso chef Mateo Herrera. This inspiration led him to become a James Beard semifinalist for Best Pastry Chef 2025. He was one of 15 chefs to make semifinals. He can be found baking at La Semilla Food Center and Spoonflower Grocery Store.
So I received my culinary education in Los Angeles, California. In 2016, I came back home to El Paso, Texas. 2020 gave me the opportunity to branch out and start my own, my own panaderia. For me, it's really cool personally, but on a larger scale, it's behind my whole mission of bringing highlight from around the world to where we live in the Chihuahuan Desert. One of the key ingredients that I use out here is mesquite, honey mesquite. They've been used by people for 20,000 plus years. I also incorporate stuff like the tunas, the fruits from the cactus around town.
The intent behind the chef's food comes from a need to nourish in more ways than one.
So to me, it's all about really like it's always been about community. It's just something that I love doing. I can use my creativity to feed people, and that's really like kind of what drives me.
Our ancestors lived a different way. Their way was connected to nature, here to care for it, and in return, it provides us abundance, it provides us food, shelter, everything we need.
For these El Paso chefs, food is more than just a business. It's a way to tell the Borderland story, one plate at a time. Reporting for Borderzine, this is Jessie Garcia.
And now, Cristela Guerra joins us from the KTEP studio to talk more about the food we love with two of our Fall 2025 reporters.
My name is Cristela Guerra. I'm here for Borderzine, and I'm sitting down with Alyda Muela, who's a local journalist, and Jessie Garcia, who's a local arts and culture reporter. You both cover arts and culture. You both write about food, music, and what is it about arts and culture in this region that you care about so deeply?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So I think I grew up around arts and culture. I remember being at a summer camp in New York City when I was 14, and I took an immigration class, and immigration was a very wild concept to a lot of my classmates, and living on the border was a wild concept to them. And to me, I was like, this is my culture. This is just simply how I grew up, and this is what's around me. And this is what the art around me is based on. This is what the food around me is based on, and the music.
Well, and I hear you say newsy, and I'm hearing they're looking at headlines. You're looking at people.
Yes.
And each of your stories emphasize the people behind that. Alyda, what would you say?
Being in El Paso and people who live here, they're surrounded by art all the time. Yeah. There's a ton of art, and it's not just, art in terms of paintings or drawings. It's, like we said, like in the food, it's in the music, it's kind of in everything. Mm-hmm. Like Jess said, it's how we live our life. It's something that we see, and I think that needs to be shared with other people as well.
So Jessie, talk to me a little bit about your story really emphasizes these two regional chefs, and it seems to relate a lot to how you grew up. Would you talk about that?
Yeah, so my dad was a chef in his early 20s. He was a chef for years as he was going to college for the first time. And he passed that down to me. I was 8 years old by the time I knew how to properly work a knife. Mm-hmm. And then when I turned 16, I've been working food service since then. So I've really grown up with this deep appreciation for the kitchen and restaurants. This is a job and a career people do for life. Yep. Working in the kitchen and in a restaurant is an art. Yeah. So I honed in on these two chefs who really emphasize that, and along with that, the culture in El Paso behind their food and the history of El Paso. So first we have Chef Mateo Herrera, who's a pastry chef, and he uses ingredients you could find from the Chihuahuan Desert in his baking. So he uses, honey mesquite, he uses the tunas from the cacti. And then we have Chef Enrique Lozano, who he has like an Asian and Mexican fusion going on at his restaurant. He also wanted to emphasize the history of mass Asian immigration here in El Paso. I think that he said, and I also think that it's a bit looked over, there's also that rich history, and they were here building railroads during that era of time, and he really wanted to emphasize that history as well as his Mexican roots.
So, Alyda, would you talk to me a little bit about your digital story emphasizes bolillos, but you spoke to your grandmother in her kitchen. What was that like?
It was really fun, kind of nerve-wracking because she wasn't too happy about being on camera, but it was really nice to sit there and record and be in the process of her making menudo. My family loves her menudo, it's our favorite, but I don't think I'd ever sat in the kitchen with her while she was cooking it, and not only that, but I got to sit in with my cousin, and something we got to experience together.
And this is a project you're also hoping to do in the future, to spend a bit more time with her to get other recipes?
Yeah, so I asked her a few years ago if she would be open to the idea of me recording, like spending a summer with her and then recording all of her recipes. It's something that I hope to continue to do because her recipes aren't written down, and I think it's important for us to, have that physical memory of what she does.
Alyda, would you tell me a little bit about the ways that you sort of emphasize both your grandmother's recipe of menudo and the ways that it's eaten both here and across the border?
So the other part of the story focuses on the unique aspect that in El Paso and along the border from like Presidio, Texas, all the way up to Arizona, menudo's eaten with bolillo or pan francés, francesito, however you want to call it. But in a lot of areas of Mexico, it would be, traditionally served with corn tortillas. But in doing this story, I also learned a little bit more about, the history of it.
Yeah.
And so during the French invasion of Mexico, Maximilian was declared emperor, and he brought bakers, cheesemakers, a lot of different French influences, and those stuck around in Mexico. And so that's why you have the bolillo, which is just a variation of a French baguette.
Well, what we have coming up for those that are watching is Alyda's piece about menudo, and hopefully you'll learn a bit more about this region. Thank you so much.
My grandmother, Olga Diaz's family, came to El Paso from Terlingua. She learned how to make menudo from her mother, Rosa Chacon, when she was growing up.
Usually she would make like the late fall, winter, like when she would make tamales also it would be. For the holidays, winter, like New Year's, Christmas.
Menudo is a traditional Mexican soup made from tripe and spicy red chile broth. Recipes for it are passed down through generations, always changing a little bit with each cook. For me, the recipe that matters most is my grandmother's. The primary ingredient is pancita, the belly cut known as tripe in English. Beef tripe is often used, but our family uses pork. Pig's feet are added for extra flavor.
Bought the pancita, the panza, the puerco, right? Pork belly.
The pancita is put into a pot of boiling water along with onion, garlic, and salt. It's left to simmer throughout the night. The pig's feet are cooked in another pot to be added to the broth later. My cousin Bella Diaz helps by removing seeds from dried red chiles. The empty pods will also soak overnight to soften. Bella takes every opportunity she can to cook with our grandmother.
I guess like a disconnect that I feel a little bit, almost to being Mexican in general, just because I don't speak the language. And so I think it makes me want to learn to do not even just cooking, but anything grandma does the way she does it.
The next morning, my grandma blends the chiles to make a sauce, just like her mother showed her.
I just watched her, like everything else. Just by watching her, I learned how to make tortillas, flour tortillas, and she cooked a lot, so that's where I picked it up. Especially on the weekends, she would make us all these different Mexican food.
She wakes up around 7 the next morning to start the broth by adding the chile sauce to the pot of tender tripe. It simmers for a while before she adds the hominy and pig's feet. It's ready to serve in another 20 minutes. Family stops by on Sundays when she makes menudo. She makes several gallons of it to send home with them.
You know, when you make your own, it's different. Like when you go out to eat, not every place is the same. Your uncles and aunts, they like it homemade when I make it. That's why I make enough for everybody.
We learned this recipe the same way she did, just by watching.
But yeah, like I guess because now, as grandma gets older and as even I get older, I realize more how important it is because like you said, like they're not written down, like, so like to be blunt, once grandma's gone, like the things that we haven't seen her watch or do or make are also gone. And so like even though it makes me happy, it's almost like a really bittersweet feeling at the same time because I'm like praying to God I don't forget.
It's ready by the time the family arrives, and she serves it the same way her mother did, with a toasted francesito fresh from the local bakery. Reporting for Borderzine, I'm Alyda Muela.
Thank you for joining us for the Fall 2025 Showcase.
For more stories and for more about us, visit borderzine.com.